What if I tell you that the true doorway to wealth, success, and everything your heart desires is not hidden in a secret vault, not guarded by powerful elites, but rests quietly in the feeling you carry inside of you each moment, a force so overlooked that most people chase money, hustle endlessly, and burn themselves out while the very key they need sits within them unused, waiting to be activated. And Neville Goddard was bold enough to declare to the world that feeling is the secret, because he understood that thought without emotion is like a seed without soil, lifeless and unable to grow, while feeling impregnates the subconscious with the reality you choose to live in, making what seems invisible take shape and form in your external world. When you think about money, you might imagine numbers in a bank account or cash in your hand, but Neville's insight shows us that money is first and foremost a state of consciousness, a vibration of security, freedom, and ease that must be felt within long before it can be touched without. Because no matter how hard you try, if you live in fear of poverty, you push wealth further away, even as you chase it with all your might. The real power begins when you stop asking when the money will come and start feeling that it is already yours. And although at first this might sound like self-deception, it is in truth the most profound act of creation. For the subconscious mind does not argue with logic. It only accepts what you impress upon it through feeling. And when you give it the sensation of abundance, it obeys by orchestrating your outer reality to match. Imagine a person who spends all day affirming, "I am wealthy," but deep down feels doubt and lack. They will only receive more situations that mirror that doubt. But imagine instead that they close their eyes, breathe deeply, and feel the thrill of walking into a store without checking the price tag, or the relief of bills paid in full, or the excitement of a message confirming money deposited in their account. And in that inner movie, they allow the joy to wash over them as if it were happening now. Then the subconscious is touched, molded, and reshaped into a magnet for experiences that align with that very feeling. Neville was unshakable in teaching that imagination plus feeling equals creation. And though the world may laugh, the results speak louder than skepticism. Because countless people have proven again and again that when they dared to assume the state of wealth and persisted in that assumption, their lives changed in ways that could not be explained by coincidence or chance. Feeling is not some casual mood you put on for a moment. It is the inner climate of your being, the atmosphere you dwell in. And if you want money to flow to you like water, then you must first create the inner weather of wealth. A rich climate within that tells every fiber of your being that abundance is normal, expected, and inevitable. The great illusion is that money comes from hard work alone, but Neville tears down this illusion by showing that effort without feeling is dry, mechanical, and often fruitless, while the smallest action taken from a state of wealth consciousness multiplies into opportunities and outcomes that seem miraculous. To become a money magnet is to master this inner art, to no longer chase but to attract, to no longer beg but to receive, to no longer doubt but to know. And the first step is simply to understand and accept that your feelings are not just fleeting emotions, but the architect of your destiny. And once you let that truth sink deep into your heart, you begin to notice the subtle shifts in your world, like chance meetings, unexpected checks, or sudden business opportunities. Yet none of it feels like chance at all. It feels like the natural unfolding of what you already claimed within. And as you settle into this new awareness, you realize that the journey has only just begun, and it is about to take you deeper into the magnetic power of living in the end of wealth. To understand how this power unfolds in everyday life, you must begin to see that the real magnet for money is not some mysterious charm, ritual, or lucky break, but the mindset you cultivate from within. Because when Neville spoke about feeling being the secret, he was showing us that the magnetism of wealth lies in the inner stance you carry, the quiet certainty that you are already provided for, and that life bends itself to match your dominant assumption. And this mindset is not about arrogance or forcing riches into your reality. It is about sinking into a steady state of abundance that naturally draws to you the opportunities, connections, and resources that reflect that state. Imagine walking into a room and sensing the difference between someone who radiates confidence and someone who drips with insecurity. In the same way, the universe responds differently to the one who feels wealthy within and the one who clings desperately to lack, because one projects the vibration of already having, while the other shouts silently of not enough. When you embody the mindset of a money magnet, you no longer look at bills with dread. You look at them with quiet assurance that they are easily handled, and instead of asking, "How will it come?" you begin to expect and allow money to flow in ways that surpass logic, sometimes through your work, sometimes through gifts, sometimes through unexpected channels you could never have planned. And all of this happens because your mindset no longer resists abundance. Neville's teaching insists that the inner state is always prior to the outer fact, which means your mindset precedes your circumstances. So when you change your inner feeling of wealthlessness to one of richness, life must conform. And although the delay sometimes fools you into thinking nothing is happening, the unseen currents are already rearranging in your favor. Think of a magnet pulling iron filings toward it. It does not strain. It does not beg. It simply exists as it is, and the filings cannot resist. They must move. And in the same way, your money magnet mindset does not chase, but effortlessly attracts, arranging circumstances to fulfill what you persist in feeling. The difference between the struggler and the magnet lies not in effort, but in consciousness, because one works against the tide with inner feelings of fear and exhaustion, while the other floats with the current of wealth consciousness, letting life bring to him what he already knows is his. And the beauty of this is that it is available to anyone, regardless of their current balance or history, because the mindset of wealth is not bought, it is chosen. And once chosen, it shapes everything else around you, from the way people treat you to the way money responds to you. To hold this mindset is to train yourself to think and feel beyond appearances, to see lack, yet refuse to believe in it, to know that the unseen reality of wealth is more true than the visible evidence of poverty, and that persistence in the inner state is the surest guarantee of its outer arrival. And as you continue to live in this mindset, your relationship with money softens and transforms, for it is no longer an enemy you chase or fear, but a loyal companion that flows to you with ease, a natural extension of your inner wealth. And when this shift anchors in your consciousness, you begin to taste the freedom of being a true money magnet without strain or doubt, only calm expectation and joyous receipt. When you begin to settle into this new way of being, something extraordinary unfolds as you learn to live in the end with wealth, because Neville made it clear that the secret was not to struggle toward a distant goal, but to claim it as already done, to feel from the place where your desire is fulfilled. And in doing so, you bypass the endless waiting and step directly into the vibration of completion, which then shapes your world to match. Living in the end with wealth means no longer imagining yourself as someone who will one day be rich, but instead embracing the feeling of already being financially free. And the more vividly and naturally you occupy that state, the more your subconscious accepts it as reality, moving heaven and earth to align with your assumption. Think of an actor stepping into a role, rehearsing lines until the performance feels real, except in your case there is no performance for others, only an inner conviction that you are now living the life you once dreamed of. And as you sustain that conviction, your outer life begins to mirror it with uncanny precision. Many people fail here because they keep looking for proof, checking the outer world for signs. But Neville reminds us that the proof comes after the assumption, never before. And so to live in the end requires a bold faith, the kind that refuses to be swayed by current circumstances, knowing that what you feel within is already true in the unseen. Imagine yourself lying on your bed at night, drifting into that drowsy state where the mind is impressionable, and instead of worrying about debt or lack, you feel the sheets of a luxurious home. You sense the freedom of knowing everything is paid for. You hear the inner applause of success, and in those moments you live as though it were already done, impressing your subconscious with the reality of wealth. To live in the end is to live beyond the tyranny of time, to act as though you already are, already have, already enjoy, and though the world may call it delusion, The truth is that everything you now see once existed in the unseen, born first in imagination before appearing in form. This practice transforms your inner dialogue, because no longer do you ask, when will it happen? But instead you affirm, it is happening now. And every thought, every emotion, every image aligns with the end result, as though you were flipping to the final chapter of a story and reading it as your current reality. The more you persist in this end state, the less resistance you feel, because you are not fighting circumstances, but embodying fulfillment. And this calm assurance sends out a frequency that reorganizes your world, creating openings, opportunities, and connections that seem to appear by coincidence, but are in truth the echo of your inner assumption. Living in the end is not pretending or daydreaming without impact. It is the creative act itself, the blueprint that instructs reality how to mold itself. And when you dare to hold that state faithfully, the evidence shows up with such precision that you marvel at the power you always carried within. And as you allow yourself to rest more often in the joy of already having, you discover that life becomes lighter, freer, and more magnetic, because you are no longer chasing after wealth, but allowing it to flow naturally to the version of you who already lives in abundance, a version you now fully occupy as your true identity. There comes a moment when you realize that the easiest doorway into this life of wealth and freedom lies in the mysterious practice Neville called the state akin to sleep. Because it is in this drowsy twilight between waking and dreaming that your subconscious mind is most open to suggestion, and if you learn to use it wisely, you can impress upon it the feeling of abundance so deeply that it begins to unfold effortlessly in your waking world. Imagine lying down at night after a long day, your body heavy and your thoughts slowing down. And instead of drifting into sleep with worries about bills or regrets about missed opportunities, you gently guide your imagination into a scene that implies your financial desire is already fulfilled. Whether it is holding a bank statement with more zeros than you've ever seen, receiving congratulations from loved ones on your success, or simply basking in the sense of freedom that comes from never worrying about money again. Neville insisted that this practice was not about forcing vivid details, but about capturing the essence of the wish fulfilled, the emotional tone, the inner relief and joy that comes from knowing it is already yours. And when you allow yourself to feel it so naturally that you drift off with that sensation, your subconscious accepts it as fact and begins to construct reality accordingly. Think of the subconscious as fertile soil that receives whatever seed you plant. And Sats is the moment when the soil is softest and most receptive. So whatever feeling you impress upon it takes root most powerfully. And just as a farmer does not dig up seeds each morning to check if they are growing, you too must trust the process, knowing that the unseen activity is bringing your wealth into visibility. The beauty of this method is that it bypasses the noisy chatter of the conscious mind. In this drowsy state, doubt loses its grip, logic grows weaker, and faith becomes easier, allowing you to plant seeds of abundance without interference. And when practiced consistently, Sats becomes a nightly ritual of creation, a sacred rehearsal of your wealthy self, so that each morning you wake not to the same old limitations, but to a world that is subtly bending toward the assumptions you carried into sleep. Many who apply this technique begin to notice small changes at first, like unexpected gifts, sudden opportunities, or a shift in how people respond to them. And as they persist, those small shifts compound into dramatic financial breakthroughs that can no longer be dismissed as coincidence. The magic lies not in the images alone, but in the feeling you carry into the subconscious, because it is not enough to say, "I am rich," if you feel poor. But if you allow yourself to taste the joy of wealth in that twilight state, even for a few seconds, you have set into motion forces that must play out in your favor. In time, you come to look forward to sleep, not as an escape from life, but as the workshop of creation, a nightly appointment with your wealthy self, where you assume the role so fully that the line between imagination and reality blurs. And when you awaken, life is already reshaping itself to honor what you dared to feel in those precious moments before sleep. And as you continue this practice with quiet confidence, you realize that the secret to becoming a money magnet was never about chasing harder, but about surrendering into this inner rehearsal, trusting that what you feel in sats becomes the world you walk in tomorrow. A truth so profound and simple that once you grasp it, your nights and days alike become the canvas upon which your wealth is painted. As you deepen into this journey, you begin to see that one of the greatest shifts you must make is moving from the heavy feeling of scarcity into the lightness of overflow. Because most people unknowingly live in the vibration of not enough, repeating it in their thoughts, speaking it in their words, and feeling it in their emotions. And then they wonder why life continues to mirror that very lack back to them. Neville taught that the outer world is nothing more than a reflection of your inner assumptions. So when you constantly assume that money is scarce, that opportunities are limited, that you must struggle to survive, the subconscious faithfully recreates those conditions, not to punish you, but simply because that is the law of consciousness. To move into overflow is to deliberately choose a new inner reality, to begin to feel as though you are surrounded by abundance, even when your senses tell you otherwise. And, though it feels unnatural at first, the more you practice, the more natural it becomes, until eventually the subconscious accepts overflow as your normal state and life bends to provide it. Imagine standing by a river with a small cup and believing that this is all you can ever have, when in truth, the river is endless, overflowing, and ready to fill not just your cup but barrels, pools, and oceans. Yet it is only your belief in limitation that keeps you from reaching for more. Scarcity breeds fear, tightness, and desperation, while overflow breeds generosity, expansion, and ease. And when you dwell in the feeling of overflow, you begin to act, speak, and think differently, creating a feedback loop that attracts even more abundance into your world. Neville urged us to feel the wish fulfilled, and overflow is the perfect example, because when you feel that you already have more than enough, the subconscious does not question how, it only knows to replicate that feeling in the form of real-life wealth. To dissolve scarcity, you must first notice it in your daily life. The way you complain about prices, the way you dread bills, the way you shrink from opportunities because you believe you cannot afford them. And then revise those reactions by choosing instead to feel that you are overflowing, that life is already providing in generous measure. Even the smallest practices, like blessing every expense as proof of circulation, or imagining each purchase as a seed returning multiplied, can shift you from the tight grip of lack to the open hand of abundance. And when this shift takes root, something beautiful happens. You stop competing, you stop comparing, and you stop fearing loss. Because you know that the supply is infinite, that life always has more to give, and that your wealth is secure in consciousness no matter what appears in the physical. In time, the signs of overflow begin to appear: unexpected income, surprising discounts, sudden windfalls. And though each of these delights you, the true joy comes from knowing that you no longer live in scarcity, you live in the state of more than enough, and from that state, money flows to you naturally, endlessly, like the river you finally realized was always there. When you finally understand that the invisible law of assumption governs every aspect of your life, you begin to see why Neville insisted that what you assume to be true, no matter how hidden or silent, must eventually harden into fact, because the subconscious mind does not judge or question. It simply accepts the feeling you most persistently carry. And from that invisible realm, your visible world is shaped. This law works quietly, without fanfare, without obvious signs at first, and yet it never fails, because every outer condition you encounter is nothing but the shadow of your inner assumption, whether that assumption is of wealth, scarcity, success, or failure. To become a money magnet, you must therefore learn to assume riches even when you do not see them, to walk in the invisible knowing that your abundance is already secured. And though this seems foolish to those who believe only in evidence, it is precisely this faith in the unseen that separates the creators from the strugglers. Think about how you have assumed lack before, telling yourself that money is hard to come by, expecting bills to pile up, dreading financial conversations. And notice how life seemed to faithfully echo those fears, not because the world was against you, but because your assumption silently commanded the play. Now imagine instead assuming that money flows easily, that opportunities seek you out, that you are divinely supported, and as you persist in this invisible stance, the law cannot resist. It must bring forth conditions that reflect the wealth you have chosen to embody. The secret is persistence, because a fleeting assumption will not carry enough weight. But when you clothe yourself daily in the feeling of abundance, you set in motion a chain of events too intricate to predict, yet too precise to dismiss. This law is like gravity, unseen, unarguable, always at work. So the only choice you have is not whether it operates, but what you will assume under its operation. And the wise creator chooses to assume wealth, joy, and freedom, even if appearances tempt him otherwise. Neville often reminded us that the world is a mirror. An assumption is the face it reflects. So if you dislike what you see, the solution is not to fight the mirror, but to change the face you wear inwardly. To grasp this invisible law is to claim the quiet confidence of the money magnet, who no longer begs life for scraps but simply assumes his riches, knowing that what he feels within must be echoed without. And as this knowing deepens, the need to struggle fades away. In the end, the law of assumption is not mystical at all but profoundly practical, because once you understand it, you realize that every assumption you persist in will become your reality. And so you choose wisely, consistently, and joyfully to live in the assumption of overflowing wealth, trusting the law to do what it always does. Reflect back your dominant feeling until it becomes the life you live. When you begin to see money not just as paper or numbers in a bank account, but as a vibration you carry within, you awaken to the truth that your greatest currency is emotional. Because feeling wealthy before the money arrives is the very act that turns the invisible into the visible. And this is why Neville emphasized that your inner state is the cause while your outer experience is the effect. To feel wealthy before the evidence shows up may sound like fantasy, but it is in fact the highest form of creation. For the subconscious does not wait for proof. It takes whatever feeling you impress upon it as true, and then works tirelessly to arrange circumstances to match it. Most people do the opposite, waiting for money to appear before they allow themselves to feel safe, secure, and abundant. But by living this way, they delay wealth indefinitely, because they keep affirming to the subconscious that abundance is not yet real. True money magnetism begins when you decide that the joy, freedom, and relief of wealth are emotions you can experience now, regardless of external conditions. And as you dwell in those feelings, you shift your vibrational state to align with prosperity itself. Imagine a person who constantly complains about not having enough. Even when a small blessing comes their way, they dismiss it and return to the vibration of lack. Whereas another person who feels wealthy even with little naturally multiplies what they have because their inner world signals overflow, and life echoes that signal faithfully. Emotional currency is therefore more powerful than physical currency, because it is the seed that produces the harvest. And without it, even great sums of money can vanish quickly, while with it, even small beginnings grow into abundance. Neville's teachings invite you to practice this daily. To close your eyes, feel the thrill of financial freedom, the pride of success, the calmness of knowing you are provided for. And as those emotions stir within you, you are already rich, already living the state that must call forth its outer reflection. This is not daydreaming or pretending. It is consciously investing your emotional energy in the wealth you desire. And just as financial investments grow with time, your consistent emotional investments in abundance compound into a reality of riches. The beauty of this truth is that no one can take it from you. No circumstance can cancel it, because emotional currency is generated within. And once you learn to dwell there, you carry wealth wherever you go. Over time, you notice that the feeling of wealth attracts not only money, but also opportunities, relationships, and experiences that mirror prosperity, proving that the inner world is the true source of every form of richness. And when you master this art of feeling wealthy before the money arrives, you realize that you were never waiting for wealth at all. Wealth was waiting for you to step into the vibration that allows it to flow, a vibration you now choose deliberately, joyfully, and persistently until it becomes the natural state of your being. Gratitude becomes the amplifier that magnifies everything you are creating. Because when you feel grateful, you are not just saying polite words or listing blessings mechanically, you are actually stepping into the vibration of having. And Neville made it clear that to feel as though you already have is the surest way to call forth more of it into your reality. Most people withhold gratitude until they see visible proof of abundance. But the true money magnet understands that gratitude is the invisible proof, the inner acknowledgement that what you desire is already yours. And when you radiate that feeling sincerely, the subconscious accepts it as fact and continues to generate conditions that confirm it. Gratitude shifts your focus from lack to sufficiency, from anxiety to assurance, from wanting to receiving, and it is in this shift that doors open, opportunities appear, and unexpected money begins to flow. Imagine waking each morning, and instead of worrying about how the bills will be paid, you feel grateful for the roof over your head, for the comfort of your bed, for the air filling your lungs, and for the unseen wealth that is already on its way. And by doing so, you set a tone of abundance that colors your entire day. Gratitude changes the way you interpret events. So what once looked like a setback becomes an opportunity. What once felt like scarcity becomes a reminder of overflow. And because you have chosen to see through the lens of plenty, your world mirrors it back to you in greater and greater measure. It is not enough to mechanically list affirmations of wealth. The power lies in feeling them as true, and gratitude naturally produces that feeling, wrapping you in the sensation that life is already providing richly. Neville often spoke of assuming the wish fulfilled, and gratitude is the emotional proof that you are already dwelling in fulfillment, for you cannot be truly grateful for something you believe you lack. You can only be grateful when you accept that it is real. Each time you practice gratitude, you strengthen the inner conviction that wealth belongs to you, and in doing so, you quiet the voice of doubt, replacing it with a calm expectation that money and opportunities are continually flowing in your favor. Over time, gratitude reshapes your identity, because you cease to see yourself as someone waiting for wealth and begin to see yourself as one who already lives in abundance. And that identity becomes magnetic, pulling prosperity towards you like iron to a magnet. And as you continue to live in this state of heartfelt appreciation, you discover that gratitude does not just bring money, it brings peace, joy, and freedom, making you realize that wealth is not only about numbers in an account, but about the richness of your entire life experience, a richness that grows endlessly when you water it daily with gratitude. Once you understand the power of gratitude, you naturally begin to see the immense potential in another of Neville's techniques: revision. Because every moment you experience, especially those moments of financial disappointment or perceived failure, can be rewritten in your imagination, so that your subconscious registers a different outcome, one that aligns with the wealth and abundance you are now determined to embody. Revision allows you to take past experiences of lack, missed opportunities, or mistakes, and reshape them as if they had always unfolded in your favor. And though it may seem like altering memory, what you are actually doing is changing the feeling impression in your subconscious, which in turn alters the blueprint for future experiences. Imagine looking back on a time when you lost money or made a poor financial decision, and instead of reliving the anxiety and regret, you replay the scene in your mind with confidence, with success, and with the inner knowing that your actions led to the outcome you desire. And in doing so, you erase the old vibration of lack and replace it with one of mastery and wealth. Neville emphasized that revision is not about denial but about correction. It is the conscious act of taking control of your inner world, ensuring that your subconscious is aligned with your present assumption rather than trapped in past limitations. Every time you revise, you plant seeds of opportunity. For the subconscious cannot distinguish between a vividly felt past and the present reality it now accepts, and therefore it begins to orchestrate events that reflect the new, improved story you have impressed upon it. Revision can be practiced quietly each night or whenever a memory arises that threatens to pull you back into scarcity. And the simple act of changing the inner feeling of that moment sets a powerful chain of cause and effect into motion. By consistently applying revision, you stop allowing the past to dictate your financial destiny, and instead take full responsibility for creating your future from the state of abundance you now occupy. The magic of revision is subtle but undeniable. Opportunities begin to appear that mirror the new story you have constructed. Unexpected resources fall into your lap, and circumstances that once seemed fixed begin to bend toward your desired outcome. You may even notice that people and situations you previously thought were obstacles start supporting your path, because your inner revision has removed the resistance that held them in place. And the flow of wealth becomes smoother, freer, and more consistent. Neville's teaching reminds us that the only reality that matters is the one we impress upon the subconscious, and through revision, we gain the power to transform past failures into the foundation for our financial success, turning every setback into a stepping stone. As this practice becomes second nature, you realize that your mind is not a passive recorder of events, but an active architect of your wealth, capable of redesigning the blueprint of your life to reflect abundance rather than limitation. And when the subconscious fully accepts these revisions, your external world inevitably catches up, producing results that once seemed impossible, proving that the creative power has always resided in your inner world, waiting for you to wield it with intention and feeling. As you continue to master the art of revision, you begin to realize that maintaining a mental diet for abundance is just as essential as revising the past, because the thoughts and ideas you feed your mind daily act like nourishment, shaping the strength and quality of the reality that your subconscious will create. And if you allow scarcity, fear, and doubt to dominate your mental intake, no amount of imagination or revision can fully manifest wealth. A mental diet for abundance means deliberately choosing thoughts, images, and feelings that reinforce the life you wish to live, just as a healthy diet fuels the body. And this requires vigilance, consistency, and awareness of the subtle ways the world can program you with lack, through news, conversations, or even your own inner commentary. Imagine the difference between someone who constantly dwells on problems, complaints, and not enough scenarios, versus a person who focuses on abundance, possibility, and the joyful anticipation of wealth. And notice how the latter naturally attracts circumstances that match their inner state, because the subconscious never separates thought from feeling. It responds to the dominant impression it receives. Neville emphasized that controlling your mental intake is not repression, but guidance. For the subconscious is malleable, waiting for your conscious mind to direct it toward wealth. And if you persistently feed it ideas of sufficiency, opportunity, and expansion, it will effortlessly generate experiences that mirror those vibrations. Daily practices such as affirming your wealth, visualizing financial success, mentally rehearsing prosperous scenarios, and guarding against negative input all reinforce this diet, and over time, the mind becomes like fertile soil, resistant to weeds of doubt and eager to cultivate abundance. The subtlety of this practice lies in noticing your habitual thought patterns and gently redirecting them, because the mind is not an enemy to battle, but a partner to train, and each correction strengthens your alignment with wealth consciousness. As you refine your mental diet, you discover that small changes, such as reframing challenges as opportunities, or seeing every transaction as a circulation of abundance, compound over time into dramatic shifts in your outer world, and what once seemed impossible begins to appear inevitable. This diet is not about ignoring reality, but about filtering it through the lens of what you desire, so that your subconscious receives a constant stream of constructive impressions that it will translate into tangible results. Over time, you notice that you no longer react to scarcity with anxiety or fear. Instead, your mind naturally defaults to creative solutions, opportunities, and avenues for prosperity, because you have trained it to seek abundance rather than dwell on limitation. Neville's teaching reminds us that external circumstances are only temporary reflections of your inner state, and by curating your thoughts carefully, you are ensuring that the reflection will always show wealth, success, and freedom. As this becomes habitual, the energy of abundance permeates every aspect of your life, influencing your decisions, your interactions, and even the people and situations that appear around you, as if the world itself has begun to cooperate with your inner state. Ultimately, the mental diet for abundance is the ongoing commitment to feed your consciousness with life-giving, wealth-generating impressions, ensuring that every thought reinforces the truth that you are already a money magnet, fully capable of attracting, receiving, and enjoying limitless prosperity. And the more faithfully you maintain this practice, the more unstoppable the flow of abundance becomes. Once you begin to grasp the importance of a disciplined mental diet, it naturally opens your awareness to the idea that money itself is not merely a physical object or a number on a screen, but a form of energy. And Neville's perspective on this is both profound and transformative, because when you treat money as energy, you understand that it flows to, through, and from you, according to the state of consciousness you maintain, rather than by random chance or effort alone. Money responds to the vibration you carry, so when you are aligned with abundance, generosity, and confidence, it moves toward you effortlessly, whereas fear, desperation, or anxiety about it repels even the most promising opportunities, making wealth appear elusive and inconsistent. Imagine money as a current of invisible force, circulating in response to the signals your mind and emotions emit, and when you consciously direct your inner state toward abundance, you begin to attract not just the physical manifestation of cash, but also relationships, ideas, and situations that carry the same energetic signature of wealth. Neville emphasized that the external world is secondary. The primary reality is always the inner state, and the more clearly you recognize money as energy rather than a fixed object, the more freedom you have to manipulate it through feeling, imagination, and conscious assumption. This shift changes everything, because you no longer struggle for money as if it were scarce or finite, but instead you begin to sense its natural flow and participate in it consciously, knowing that the more you give attention, gratitude, and expectation to abundance, the more it will circulate through your life. When you internalize this truth, even small amounts of money become significant, because you treat them as the pulse of energy that confirms the circulation of prosperity in your world. And every transaction becomes a reminder that money is alive and responds to the state you project. Many people fail to recognize this principle and exhaust themselves chasing after bills, promotions, or windfalls, while the true money magnet simply embodies wealth, understanding that the energy of money is attracted to energy like its own, and the flow is inevitable once alignment is established. By focusing on the energetic nature of money, you also release attachment to specific outcomes or rigid methods of acquiring it, allowing opportunities to appear in ways you could never have imagined, often with effortless timing and surprising abundance. Neville's insight teaches that mastery over money is first mastery over feeling, and when you treat money as energy, your inner alignment dictates your external wealth, creating a life where abundance is not contingent but natural, not forced but inevitable. As you cultivate this perspective, you begin to notice that money follows your intentions, mirrors your emotions, and accelerates in response to the clarity and richness of your inner state, proving that energy, not struggle, is the true currency of creation. And once this understanding becomes second nature, you no longer react to financial challenges with fear or resistance, but instead you flow with the current of prosperity, confident in the knowledge that your feelings and assumptions are the invisible hands shaping your experience, guiding wealth to you in perfect measure, timing, and form. As your awareness deepens and you begin to see money as energy flowing naturally to match your inner state, you also encounter the necessity of breaking free from limiting beliefs about wealth. Because no matter how skillfully you use your imagination or how faithfully you practice feeling abundance, old subconscious convictions that tell you money is hard to come by or wealth is only for others act as invisible barriers, quietly resisting the very prosperity you are attempting to attract. These beliefs are often inherited from family, society, or past experiences, and they lodge themselves in the subconscious so deeply that most people are unaware of their presence, yet they govern behavior, choices, and the ability to receive. To free yourself, you must first identify these hidden narratives and then consciously replace them with empowering assumptions that align with the reality you desire. For Neville taught that it is the inner conviction, not the external circumstance, that determines your life. Imagine a person who has always believed that money comes through struggle. Even if they receive windfalls, they will unconsciously sabotage the flow because the old belief insists that wealth is dangerous, fleeting, or undeserved, whereas someone who rewires their mind to accept prosperity as natural and safe allows money to circulate freely into their life. The process of breaking free involves persistent inner dialogue, revision of past experiences, and a willingness to assume a new identity as a wealthy, capable, and deserving individual. And each small victory chips away at the subconscious walls of limitation. Over time, the mind begins to accept abundance, not as a distant goal, but as an inherent right. And the inner friction that once blocked the flow of money dissolves, replaced by ease, expectation, and a sense of entitlement to the good life. Neville emphasized that this transformation is not about forcing circumstances or pretending wealth exists. It is about aligning feeling and assumption so completely that the subconscious has no alternative but to manifest the state you now inhabit within. Once limiting beliefs are released, opportunities that were once invisible become obvious, creative ideas flow without strain, and your confidence in financial decision-making grows, reinforcing the sense of natural abundance. Even challenges that arise are no longer perceived as threats because your inner framework now interprets them as temporary, manageable, and ultimately contributing to your prosperity, a reflection of the newfound freedom you have claimed. As this inner liberation strengthens, you notice that money arrives in ways that feel effortless, synchronistic, and often unexpected, as if the universe itself has recognized your readiness to receive, confirming that the breaking of limiting beliefs is the catalyst for true financial magnetism. And the more you practice this inner work, the less power outside forces have over you, because your wealth consciousness becomes a shield that attracts only what is in harmony with your chosen state, allowing you to live confidently, creatively, and abundantly, knowing that the only limits are those you allow to exist, and now you no longer allow any. Once you begin to release limiting beliefs, another layer of transformation emerges through the power of your inner conversations about money, because the dialogue you maintain with yourself, often unnoticed, automatic, and habitual, shapes your subconscious assumptions more than any external advice or circumstance ever could. And Neville was clear that the words and tones you use internally are the architects of your reality. Most people speak to themselves in ways that reinforce scarcity, doubt, and frustration, whispering, "I'll never have enough, I can't afford that," or "money always slips away." And in doing so, they instruct the subconscious to reproduce precisely those conditions in their lives. By contrast, when you consciously choose to engage in inner conversations that affirm your worthiness, abundance, and ability to receive, you begin to rewire your mental landscape so that your thoughts, feelings, and assumptions all point toward wealth. Imagine a person who starts each day with a gentle, confident conversation with themselves, acknowledging that money flows easily, that opportunities are abundant, and that they are fully capable of handling and enjoying prosperity. And notice how their outer world begins to reflect that internal shift. The power lies not merely in positive statements, but in the consistency, conviction, and emotional resonance of those internal dialogues. Because the subconscious responds to the feeling behind the words, not the words alone. As you cultivate this practice, you catch yourself before reacting to financial stress with panic, and instead you pause to redirect your inner conversation toward the state of having already received, reinforcing the magnetic energy that draws wealth to you effortlessly. Neville emphasized that inner conversations are like seeds planted in fertile soil, and just as a seed must be nurtured, repeated, and protected from weeds, so too must your self-talk be tended carefully to ensure the growth of financial abundance. Over time, the subtle yet persistent use of empowering inner conversations shifts your perception of the world, transforming obstacles into opportunities, mistakes into lessons, and delays into moments of preparation for greater gains. The energy you carry in these dialogues is contagious, influencing not only your own experiences but also the way others respond to you, attracting people, circumstances, and resources that align with your assumed state of wealth. By observing and directing your internal speech, you reclaim the steering wheel of your subconscious, guiding it toward outcomes that match your desires, rather than leaving it at the mercy of unexamined fears or societal programming. This practice reinforces your identity as someone who is already wealthy, confident, and capable, solidifying the emotional foundation upon which all outer manifestations are built. The more mindful and intentional your inner conversations become, the more your external reality reflects ease, flow, and abundance, proving that transformation is first internal before it is visible. And as you persist in shaping your inner dialogue with care and consistency, you find that the magnetic pull of wealth becomes unstoppable. The circumstances you desire appear with increasing clarity, and the inner conviction that you are a money magnet grows stronger with every thought, feeling, and spoken word you consciously nurture. As your inner conversations gain clarity and purpose, you naturally begin to distinguish between wealth consciousness and poverty consciousness, because the lens through which you perceive life determines the opportunities you notice, the decisions you make, and the energy you project. And Neville made it clear that those who dwell in poverty consciousness remain trapped in limitation, while those who embrace wealth consciousness open themselves to an endless stream of abundance. Poverty consciousness is subtle. It masquerades as practicality, caution, or realism, yet underneath it always carries fear, lack, and resistance, convincing you that resources are finite, that success is reserved for others, and that you must struggle for every gain. Wealth consciousness, on the other hand, is expansive, confident, and unshakable, rooted in the inner knowing that abundance is your natural state, and it shapes perception so that every situation, interaction, and idea becomes a potential source of prosperity. Imagine approaching life with the belief that opportunities are everywhere, that money is circulating freely, and that your inner state determines the quality of your external experiences. From this perspective, challenges are no longer barriers but stepping stones, and every action taken feels aligned and effortless. Neville taught that the outer world reflects the dominant state within, so the shift from poverty consciousness to wealth consciousness is not about acquiring more resources. It is about embodying a mindset that magnetizes them, allowing the universe to mirror your inner abundance. Those who cling to scarcity notice every lack, magnify every problem, and unconsciously repel wealth, whereas those aligned with prosperity focus on potential, celebrate small victories, and naturally attract the people and circumstances that support their growth. The transition requires awareness, because poverty consciousness often feels familiar, comforting, or justified, yet recognizing it as a limitation is the first step toward liberation, and consistent practice in adopting wealth consciousness gradually rewires your responses, assumptions, and expectations. Every thought, feeling, and inner conversation is an opportunity to reinforce abundance rather than limitation, and the cumulative effect of these deliberate choices reshapes your reality in ways that are both subtle and dramatic. Imagine a daily routine where gratitude, assumption, and joyful expectation dominate your inner landscape. Over time, the outer world aligns, producing results that feel inevitable, effortless, and perfectly timed. Neville emphasized that this is not wishful thinking, but a practical application of the law of consciousness. The state you occupy internally precedes and dictates the form your life takes externally. Wealth consciousness allows you to see money as energy, opportunity, and freedom, whereas poverty consciousness traps you in fear, anxiety, and endless striving, often producing the very scarcity it predicts. By persistently choosing to operate from a state of wealth consciousness, you begin to attract more than you previously imagined, expand your perception of what is possible, and interact with the world from a place of confidence and power. The outer circumstances begin to respond. Doors open, ideas flow, and relationships that once seemed unattainable come into alignment with your inner state. And as you cultivate this dominant wealth consciousness, you no longer chase, struggle, or compete. Instead, you naturally embody the energy of a money magnet, experiencing the effortless flow of abundance as an inevitable reflection of the reality you have assumed within. As you continue to immerse yourself in wealth consciousness, you discover the extraordinary power of feeling financial freedom before it's visible. because the essence of Neville's teaching is that the inner state always precedes the outer manifestation. And by living as though you are already free from financial worry, you impress upon the subconscious the reality you desire so deeply that circumstances eventually conform to match it. This means no longer waiting for a bank balance, paycheck, or external validation to feel secure, but instead cultivating a vivid inner sensation of ease, confidence, and abundance, as if every debt were paid, every need effortlessly met, and every desire already fulfilled. Imagine waking up each morning and breathing in the joy of financial independence, feeling the relief of not having to negotiate scarcity, and sensing the lightness that comes from knowing that resources are constantly circulating toward you. This inner reality sets the stage for the outer world to follow. The practice is subtle yet profound. It requires you to remain faithful to the inner impression even when the physical evidence has not yet appeared, trusting that the unseen laws of consciousness are already at work, arranging events, opportunities, and people in perfect alignment with your assumed state. Many falter here because they are tempted to look outside for proof, to check accounts, measure results, or compare themselves to others. But Neville insists that such checking only reinforces lack, whereas persistent inner feeling of freedom strengthens the subconscious blueprint and accelerates manifestation. By living in the end, you remove struggle from the equation, allowing ideas, ventures, and unexpected blessings to flow into your life naturally, without strain, timing, or effort dictated by fear. Feeling financial freedom also rewires your decisions. You no longer compromise for temporary fixes. You no longer settle for less, and your choices consistently reflect the energy of abundance, magnetizing opportunities that support rather than undermine your wealth. This inner state transforms not just your relationship with money but with life itself, producing a calm confidence, a joyful expectation, and a creative clarity that draws solutions and resources from seemingly nowhere. Imagine handling every financial challenge not with panic or scarcity thinking, but with the quiet assurance that the answer is already on its way, because your inner reality has already created it. This is the essence of becoming a money magnet. Over time, even the smallest expressions of freedom, paying a bill without stress, receiving an unexpected payment, making a purchase with ease, serve to reinforce the inner impression, creating a feedback loop where feeling abundance and seeing abundance continually strengthen one another. Neville's teaching shows that the key is not external accumulation but internal fidelity. The more faithfully you occupy the state of financial freedom, the faster, smoother, and more surprising the external confirmation becomes. As you persist in this inner practice, you begin to notice synchronicities, unexpected gifts, and opportunities appearing as if by design, and you realize that the world has been responding to your inner state all along. This practice also teaches detachment from outcomes. By feeling free and abundant first, you stop clinging to specific methods or sources of money, allowing the universe to deliver it in ways far beyond your imagination. And as this inner feeling matures, you understand that wealth is not measured by numbers, but by the inner freedom and ease you carry, a freedom that, once assumed, inevitably transforms your life into a continuous reflection of the prosperity you have claimed within. Once you have fully embraced the feeling of financial freedom, you begin to realize the incredible role imagination plays in creating wealth opportunities. Because Neville consistently taught that everything that appears in the physical world was first conceived and felt in the mind. And by deliberately directing your imagination toward scenarios of abundance, you are essentially scripting the blueprint that the subconscious will bring into manifestation. Imagination is not merely daydreaming or idle fantasy. It is a powerful tool of creation that, when combined with feeling, has the ability to attract money, opportunities, and solutions that you might never have found through ordinary effort alone. Imagine closing your eyes and vividly picturing yourself negotiating a lucrative deal, receiving a check for a project you've completed, or effortlessly solving a financial problem, and feeling the excitement, relief, and satisfaction as though it were happening in the present. In doing so, you impress upon the subconscious a reality so compelling that it begins to orchestrate circumstances to match it. Most people overlook the potential of imagination, thinking that only external work matters. Yet Neville demonstrated that those who master the art of imagining their desires fulfilled consistently see their outer world rearranged to reflect those inner visions. The key lies in emotion. The more genuine and intense the feeling you carry while imagining, the stronger the signal sent to your subconscious, and the more swiftly it translates into visible results. For the subconscious acts only on what is impressed upon it with feeling. As you practice this consciously, you begin to notice new opportunities that align perfectly with your inner vision. People showing up at just the right time, and resources appearing that you could not have anticipated, proving that imagination is the engine of creation. By dedicating time daily to focused imaginative exercises, whether in the quiet moments before sleep, during meditation, or even brief mental rehearsals throughout the day, you reinforce the frequency of abundance and prime the subconscious to deliver in ways that feel effortless. This practice also shifts your perception of obstacles, because once your imagination is aligned with wealth, challenges no longer appear as barriers, but as stepping stones or prompts to refine and expand your creative vision. Neville's method encourages a playful yet deliberate approach. The imagination is not a place for worry or limitation, but the laboratory in which your future prosperity is designed, tested, and brought into alignment with your desires. As you persist, imagination becomes a habitual extension of your daily thinking, seamlessly blending into your inner life so that opportunities seem to appear naturally and solutions emerge with clarity and ease. The more you immerse yourself in this inner creative process, the less you are dependent on luck or timing, because your imagination has already prepared the circumstances for success, and the subconscious ensures that external reality conforms. Over time, this practice produces a heightened awareness of possibility in every situation, a confidence that no financial challenge is insurmountable, and a magnetic presence that draws resources toward you continuously. And as your imaginative faculties strengthen, you begin to recognize that wealth is not simply an outcome but a living, responsive reflection of your inner state, a proof that your mind and feeling are the architects of your money magnetism, and the unseen force behind every prosperous opportunity that manifests in your life. As your imagination becomes a consistent tool for shaping your financial reality, you begin to understand that persistence in assumption is the force that transforms possibility into inevitable wealth. Because Neville made it clear that holding an assumption firmly, without wavering or doubting, impresses the subconscious so thoroughly that it has no choice but to manifest the conditions that reflect that inner reality. Many falter here because they allow external circumstances, temporary setbacks, or the opinions of others to shake their conviction. But the true money magnet remains steadfast, continuing to feel, think, and act from the end result, knowing that reality always responds to the dominant assumption held within. Imagine a sculptor who chisels patiently, without distraction, until the form within the stone is fully revealed. In the same way, persistence in assumption carves your wealth into physical reality, regardless of what seems to be happening in the world outside. Each day, each moment, becomes an opportunity to reinforce the assumption through feeling, imagination, and inner dialogue. And the more consistently you maintain this state, the more powerful the magnetic pull becomes, drawing opportunities, money, and solutions toward you as if by invisible design. Neville emphasized that the universe does not negotiate, it simply mirrors your dominant feeling. And so the only question is whether you will persist in assuming wealth or allow fear and doubt to dilute your conviction. Persistence is not rigid struggle but steady faith. It is not about forcing outcomes, but about remaining anchored in the reality you have assumed, letting your inner state dictate the flow of life without interference from outer appearances. Over time, the accumulation of repeated assumptions builds momentum, like a snowball rolling downhill, until manifestation becomes inevitable, and you begin to see events, resources, and people aligning perfectly with your intended outcome. This discipline also strengthens your identity as a wealthy individual because the subconscious interprets repeated assumptions as truth, not possibility, and molds your behaviors, decisions, and interactions to match that truth. Even when appearances seem contrary, The persistent assumption acts as a lighthouse, guiding circumstances toward alignment, and gradually external reality reshapes itself in accordance with the inner state. Neville taught that faith in the unseen is the cornerstone of creation, and the consistent, unwavering assumption of your financial goals is the ultimate expression of that faith, for it signals to the subconscious that no other outcome is acceptable or even considered. As you continue this practice, you notice a remarkable shift. Events that once required struggle or persuasion now occur with ease. Money flows in unexpected ways, and opportunities arrive seemingly effortlessly, confirming that persistence transforms desire into certainty. The key is to resist reacting to temporary appearances of lack, and instead maintain the inner feeling of fulfillment, knowing that the unseen forces are already orchestrating the manifestation of your assumption. And as this persistent assumption becomes habitual, you live in a state of quiet assurance, immune to doubt, fully aligned with the magnetic energy of wealth, and aware that your financial reality is now not a question of if, but when and how it will appear exactly as imagined. As the power of persistent assumption strengthens within you, a natural progression emerges, living as if wealth is already yours. Because Neville emphasized that the most effective way to magnetize money is not to wait for it to arrive, but to inhabit the reality you desire so fully that your thoughts, emotions, and actions all reflect the state of abundance as if it were already a fact. This is more than mere pretense. It is the conscious embodiment of the feeling of having achieved your financial goals, allowing the subconscious to accept that state as permanent and inevitable, and thus begin orchestrating external circumstances to match it. Imagine walking through your day, making decisions, handling money, and responding to opportunities from a place of inner affluence, with no hesitation, anxiety, or second-guessing, because the feeling of wealth has become your default orientation. By living in this state, your energy naturally attracts resources, people, and ideas that harmonize with the life you are already experiencing internally, and the more consistent you are, the more effortless the manifestation becomes. Neville's insight reminds us that outer appearances are secondary. It is the internal state that dictates outcomes, and when you act, speak, and feel as though wealth is your natural condition, the world is compelled to reflect that reality. This practice also redefines your approach to challenges, for when obstacles arise, you perceive them not as threats to your abundance, but as temporary adjustments in the flow of resources, solvable with confidence and creativity, because your inner reality is unshakable. Every choice you make, from daily spending to long-term investments, is influenced by the sense of already having, and this alignment between inner conviction and outer action creates a seamless path toward wealth that feels intuitive rather than forced. Imagine receiving unexpected opportunities, profits, or advantages, and recognizing that they are drawn to you not by chance, but by the magnetic energy of your consistent inner state, proving that living as if wealth is yours accelerates manifestation beyond ordinary expectation. As this way of being solidifies, your identity shifts. You no longer see yourself as striving, lacking, or waiting, but as someone for whom prosperity is the natural condition of life, and every external confirmation merely mirrors what you already inhabit internally. This embodiment also cultivates confidence, ease, and decisiveness, making interactions, negotiations, and creative ventures flow more smoothly, because your subconscious communicates to the world that you are aligned with abundance, and the world responds accordingly. Living as if wealth is already yours is a continuous act of faith, imagination, and feeling, sustained by gratitude, inner dialogue, and assumption, and each repetition strengthens the subconscious impression until it becomes automatic. The power of this practice lies in its total integration. Thoughts, emotions, and behaviors all cohere to a single reality of abundance, producing results that appear effortless, timely, and synchronized with your desires. Over time, you notice that life unfolds as if prearranged, aligning with your imagined reality, because the inner state has already dictated the outer expression, and nothing can contradict it. By choosing to inhabit this state daily, you effectively remove resistance, doubt, and scarcity from your life, and the energy you project becomes a magnet for wealth, opportunities, and success, reflecting the invisible law that Neville championed. To live in the end is to create the end. As you settle into living as if wealth is already yours, you naturally come to understand the vital role of patience and non-resistance in manifestation. Because even when your inner state is perfectly aligned, the subconscious often requires time to orchestrate events, circumstances, and people in harmony with your assumed reality. And any tension or impatience can disturb the flow of abundance. Neville emphasized that manifestation is not about forcing outcomes, but about maintaining your inner state without agitation, complaint, or doubt, trusting that the unseen law is already at work, quietly arranging the world to match your assumptions. Imagine planting seeds in a garden and then frantically digging them up every day to check growth. Such impatience would hinder their development, yet when you water, nurture, and allow time for natural unfolding, the harvest arrives in perfect measure. Similarly, when you cultivate non-resistance, you stop mentally fighting appearances that seem contrary, stop questioning the timing or method of delivery, and instead hold your focus on the reality you have assumed, confident that your inner state is already producing results. Patience does not mean passivity. It means actively maintaining the feeling of abundance, imagining success, and conducting your inner conversations in alignment with wealth, while refraining from anxiety about when or how it will appear externally. The power of non-resistance is profound. It removes friction, doubt, and negativity, all of which act like anchors that slow the flow of prosperity, and it allows the creative law to operate unhindered, bringing wealth to you naturally, synchronistically, and often unexpectedly. Imagine going about your day, seeing opportunities, taking inspired action, yet without desperation or clinging, trusting that every effort is supported by the inner work you have done, and recognizing that the universe responds to your emotional state, not your frantic struggle. Neville taught that the subconscious does not care about timing, only about the persistence and fidelity of your assumption. When you cease resisting and allow events to unfold, the unseen forces marshal circumstances with perfect precision. Over time, practicing patience and non-resistance strengthens your inner conviction, reinforces your identity as someone who already has abundance, and removes the mental barriers that previously delayed manifestation. This approach also transforms your relationship with challenges, because obstacles are no longer sources of anxiety but indicators that the manifestation is in process, subtly guiding you toward alignment and refinement. Each day you maintain calm, trust, and non-resistance. The magnetic power of your inner state increases, drawing resources, ideas, and people into your orbit with minimal effort. The combination of patient expectation and unwavering assumption ensures that wealth arrives not through struggle, but as a natural consequence of the state you occupy. You begin to notice synchronicities, sudden insights, and effortless opportunities that confirm the law is at work, producing results that often exceed your original imagination. In embracing patience and non-resistance, you cultivate not only wealth, but also peace, clarity, and confidence, demonstrating that the art of manifestation is as much about how you feel in the process as the outcome itself. And ultimately, by mastering these principles, you find that abundance flows naturally, inevitably, and beautifully, reflecting the seamless integration of inner state, assumption, and the quiet orchestration of the subconscious mind. As you reach the culmination of this journey, you arrive at the integration and mastery of becoming a true money magnet, because all the principles you have practiced, feeling the wish fulfilled, revision, mental diet, imagination, assumption, gratitude, non-resistance, and living as if wealth is already yours, converge into a single powerful state of being in which abundance flows effortlessly and continuously. Mastery is not an endpoint, but a natural expression of consistent alignment. It is the effortless embodiment of wealth consciousness in every thought, word, emotion, and action, so that prosperity becomes not something you pursue, but the natural result of who you are internally. Imagine waking each day fully immersed in the feeling of abundance, responding to challenges with calm creativity, seizing opportunities with confidence, and attracting people, circumstances, and ideas that mirror your inner state. This is the life of a true money magnet, operating from a state of effortless attraction rather than struggle. Neville taught that the subconscious obeys your dominant feeling, and mastery is achieved when your inner state is unwavering, fully integrated, and resistant to the illusions of lack or limitation that once held you back. The wealth you now experience is no longer dependent on chance, effort, or external validation. It is the inevitable reflection of a mind and heart aligned with the invisible law of assumption, circulating abundance in perfect harmony with your internal vibration. Every decision, every action, every interaction flows from this foundation of inner certainty, producing results that consistently reinforce your identity as someone who naturally attracts financial prosperity. Imagine the joy, freedom, and creative power that arise from knowing you are perpetually in alignment with wealth, and that every manifestation, whether expected or surprising, is a testament to the mastery of your inner world. True money magnetism also radiates outward. The energy you emit influences others, opening doors, creating collaborations, and attracting opportunities that further multiply your abundance, as if the universe conspires in your favor. Mastery requires vigilance, not in the form of stress or fear, but in the conscious choice to maintain the state of wealth in thought, feeling, and imagination, observing inner dialogues, and revising any trace of scarcity that arises. Over time, the inner practices that once seemed deliberate become natural habits, a seamless integration of assumption, emotion, and focus that continuously fuels prosperity. You discover that money is merely a reflection of the energy you carry, and as that energy becomes wholly aligned with abundance, the external world mirrors it flawlessly, producing effortless financial victories and opportunities beyond expectation. Mastery also brings resilience. Even when temporary setbacks occur, they no longer shake your inner state, because you know that the law of assumption is always at work, silently rearranging circumstances to match your dominant feeling. This integration transforms your identity, shifting you from someone who chases wealth to someone who embodies it, radiates it, and naturally attracts it, becoming a living conduit of abundance. Every aspect of life, career, relationships, creative endeavors, and personal growth benefits from this alignment, because financial freedom expands into every corner of your existence, producing a holistic prosperity that feels effortless and inevitable. And in this state, you realize the profound truth Neville revealed, that becoming a true money magnet is not about acquiring wealth, but about becoming the vibrational match to wealth. And when you live as this match in every moment, abundance is no longer a goal, but a natural, perpetual reality that reflects the harmony, clarity, and mastery of your inner world.